The size of the landmine infestation in Ukraine is larger than the state of Florida. I mean,
Ooh.
so this is what has been lost by Ukraine, the nation. This idea that they have somehow won, other than some type of Pyrrhic victory, or because it sounds good, it makes politicians look tough. We stood up to the Russian bear, which is a motif that goes back to the 1850s in the British Parliament. Another thing that was scary that's coming out of these anonymous sources is that you would normally think, I think in a rational mind, you would say, okay, we're going to put in our effort. We're going to throw into this offensive. We're going to try and win the war militarily. And if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll negotiate. And you see this thinking again that goes back to the way it's the same people. It's always the same people in Washington, D.C. making this foreign policy, whether they have R's or D's after name, the same thinking in Afghanistan, the same thinking in Iraq, that we're going to win military, force their hand, and that they're going to have to come and beg us for peace. And you're not seeing that at all. But the reports coming out in the Journal and the Times makes it seem as if results of this failed offensive will not be a turn to negotiations, but rather a reason to keep fighting. That, okay, we cannot negotiate until we have the upper hand. In order to get the upper hand, we have to keep fighting. Of course, there's a difference, right, between winning the war and sustaining the war. And I think that's the calculation the Russians have to make, Vladimir Putin and his people have to make. How long do they want to keep this going? Because even though they have the upper hand now, and even though they may be able to advance, my feeling is that, like any war, any foreign war, you're going to have domestic political consequences that in 2 or 3 years' time will have real effects on Russia. And I think Vladimir Putin has to understand that, has to balance that. Same time, too, you're going to have this commitment within the United States and NATO, whereas we are only producing 25,000 artillery shells a month now. But now every member of the United States Congress wants to increase that to 100,000 a month. And they'll put the money behind it. Because remember, weapons contractors have this purpose. NATO has this purpose. It's a holy purpose. And eventually it'll take on this idea that retaking Crimea becomes like a crusade, as if we have to retake Jerusalem.